Hi, I'm Reynolds, and if you've wanted to raise meat birds, or you have in the past, but if you've had these three issues, we are going to address heart attacks, respiratory problems, and number one, leg problems with the Cornish crossbird. We're also going to give you a lot of context on why this is happening, and at the end we're going to be talking about what you can do to supplement your rations, or what products that you can buy that are going to really help your meat birds thrive. It's really a bunch of fundamental stuff, but if you don't know, then you're doomed to have these issues. And we've raised thousands of meat birds. Right now I've just got a handful right here. We mostly focus on our bees, so if you have not watched our beekeeping channel, we have hundreds of videos on beekeeping, but this one's all about chickens. Alright, so before we get into the respiratory, leg problems, and heart attacks, let's talk about one or two things that I really think you need to know before we get into the nitty-gritty details. First of all, these are crosses of crosses. I really don't think that's a bad thing, but you've got to think about it in this way. We are raising a bird that is going to be processing weight in 8 weeks. We usually run ours to 9 to 10 weeks, and I've run them as long as 11 to 12 weeks and not had heart attacks, leg problems, or respiratory issues with these birds. And it all comes down to nutrition and a few other things. But when you're growing a bird this fast, you cannot treat it like a regular chicken. A laying bird and other heritage breeds that grow to full size over the course of 4, 5, 6 months. Layers usually take about 6 months before they start laying halfway decent. You have a long period of time to get that nutrition into your birds. And there are still people with layers that have cannibalism going on in the hen house because they're not getting enough nutrition, or they're not laying well, or they're molting too often. Nutrition is so important. A lot of these generic feeds are just junk. It's a lot like our food for humans. And they put in stuff that's supposed to be good enough, but it's not good enough. But we cannot treat these birds the same. They are getting bigger, and they're getting it at a fast rate. Now, don't think this is some Franken chicken. A lot of people paint that image because they have those three issues that we're going to be addressing in this video. They're having those issues because they're treating these birds incorrectly. They've got to have nutrition, and they've got to have it now. 8 and 9 weeks, that is a phenomenally fast-growing bird. But then again, there are some heritage breeds that get to a pretty decent size in 12 to 13 weeks. Not quite as big, but pretty comparable. And so some people really want to just focus on the natural, more heritage breeds that are not being crossed like crazy, but those birds have still been selected for. I really have no problems with using these birds. I just have a problem with people saying that it's because of their genetics that they have all of these issues. That's kind of not really true. As long as they get the nutrition that they need for the sizes they're growing, they're fine. So I just kind of wanted to paint that picture early on because they're just getting so massive so quickly. They cannot be treated the same. All right, let's get with the easy one. Respiratory problems. Obviously, our birds right now are not going to be dealing with respiratory distress. This mainly happens in confinement. The ammonia from their manure is so rough on their lungs, and then it gets even worse as it dries, and they're scratching, they're flapping their wings, and they're walking through it, or you're walking through it, and that chicken fecal dust matter is terrible for humans, and it's terrible for the birds. This is mostly a confinement problem, but let's say you're overwintering your birds where that's what you're doing right now. You can make that work, but you need some carbonous material. Hay will work, straw will work, wood chips are better, sawdust can work. Nitrogen bonds with carbon. And so if we can get enough carbon in there, we're going to suppress that, we're going to keep it clean, and as it slightly decomposes, it generates some heat during winter, which is really nice. Now, that one's pretty easy. I mean, obviously right now our birds are getting this awesome fall fresh air, so check that one off the list. Next is heart attacks, which is not the main problem, but it's a big problem. And the only time I've had issues with this is, again, nutrition. When nutrition wasn't good enough, and primarily when it was midsummer, blistering hot, and we were running the old Joe Salatin type pens, and they're about 2 feet off the ground. You have 10 on the back third of the pens, and on the sides and the backs, and that sun hits that. It can be 130, 140 degrees underneath that, no problem. And so eliminating that stress and that heat that stress, and especially if they have nutritional stress to compound that, they're going to have heart attacks, and they could be good looking one day. You have that crazy blistering hot day under some hot metal or some hot pen that they're in, and you can lose the whole flock or the majority to heart attack stress. But then again, if you're kept in a 140-degree environment and you're pretty stressed out and you're growing at this rate, and again, you cannot feed them an inferior ration and have a lot of stress. You just can't do it. So that's basically the heart attacks right there. You can really eliminate the heart attacks if you just keep them out of the heat. Focus on the diet we're fixing to tell you about. And then lastly, leg problems. Again, nutrition. Getting outside, it's so important for everybody. Our bodies were made to move around. The chickens' bodies are made to move around. And as you saw at the beginning of this video, these birds don't have any leg problems. They love running around, scratching around, doing what chickens want to do. And they're able to do it because the ration that we have is wonderful. I'm going to grab some real quick. Watch out, birds. Excuse me. Now, a lot of the corn is gone, but you can see this right here. This actually smells delicious. This is ground fresh. When I got it, it was only probably a day or two old from how long it had been ground. You know, a lot of those generic pellets and crumble mixes, you can't even see any of the grain in any of it. I mean, those things could have been on the shelf for 6 months to a year for all you know. You don't know. This stuff will actually mold if you keep it too long. It's a totally different feed, and it's fresh. It needs to be eaten quickly. And because of that, our birds do so much better. But leg problems are primarily due to riboflavin, a deficiency in riboflavin. The feed that they make for me is custom made for broilers. It has a high protein ration, and when they're chicks, there's a chick starter for broilers. It's higher in protein, going up to 24%, which is what I've been using. And when they get older, you back them off a little bit, down more towards 19 to 20%. Also, I do a couple other things to prevent just the birds growing too quickly. First of all is, once they get about past 6 weeks, I don't let them just stay on feed constantly. I'll usually let them have feed for about 14 hours, and then they'll run out for about 10. And that's just fine. It helps, I think, one, them focus more on the forage when I open it up in the morning, but two, it also just helps slow their growth down a little bit. I don't really want a whole lot of slow growth, but I'm not really just crunching on a timeline, especially since these are my birds. I love running mine to 9 to 10 weeks because once they develop that full, skeletal mass, they just start putting on a lot more muscle and fat, and I really feel like the bone density gets better. A lot of the marrow, which is so important for broth. Oh my goodness. Homegrown chicken broth is so good, especially with winter coming up. Good stuff. But that ration needs to be formulated for your broilers. But even if you don't have access to something that's real nice and fancy like that, and you've got something cheap, you can supplement it with some products that have high riboflavin. Now let's get into what we can supplement. Riboflavin is very important, and so are several other components. There are 4 things that really stand out to me as good supplements for chickens that are pretty commonly available. One of them is a product, 3 of them are food products, and there are other things that you can use if you can supplement and find it, but these are the ones that I have experience with. First is kelp. Now this does not have the riboflavin, but I really like adding it because it has 56 trace minerals. We would mix 50 pounds of Icelandic kelp in a ton of feed, and it was awesome. And they loved it, and I really thought that you could see a difference. Even in that low amount, I take kelp myself. And again, you don't need a lot. These are trace minerals. Some of them actually in high amounts can be toxic to your body. Some of them are really finicky. Too much is too much. But definitely you need them. Some of them are have little tiny functions in the body, but really can help the birds or help you stay healthy and have better immune function and all that kind of stuff. So, getting to the riboflavin, brewer's yeast, full of B vitamins, and lots of riboflavin. You can mix that in. Nutritional yeast, which I really love, it's typically a little bit more expensive, but you can mix these in. I'm wanting somewhere to like a 50-pound bag of feed. And there's going to be some variables here. If you have a high quality feed, I don't use as much. But if you're using some generic crumble for broilers, then I'm going to probably want 2 pounds per 50-pound bag. If you have a really high quality feed like this and they're getting a lot of free range, I want to probably drop that down almost half. And you can tweak it a little bit. And this other product is a product made for chickens. It's Fertile Nutri Balancer. I'm going to leave that in the comments below. It's going to be pinned at the very top. You know, there's several places you can buy this. It's just, you can see it on Amazon, but you might be able to find it cheaper somewhere else. But you can see what it looks like going through that link. And what it is riboflavin, calcium, and it's several other really important things for poultry, specific for poultry, in a probiotic mix. And these probiotics are designed to be exactly what the birds already have in them, just boosting those numbers. We're getting some from the forage and all that kind of stuff, but this has, basically you could just mix this in with your cheap mix and be done with it. Now they recommend 10 pounds for every 333 pounds of feed. Again, I find if I've got a good ration, plenty of forage, I can drop that down by half, which makes it a little bit more cost effective. It's still, I think, worth it. Keep in mind as you're adding these ingredients, your birds are going to be healthier, you're going to get better performance, you're going to get big meat birds. I mean, in 9 weeks, we're talking about dressing out close to 5 pounds, probably averaging 4.7 pounds dressed weight. That's a big chicken. 10 weeks, we're definitely going over 5 pounds. But it's an investment into your birds, but it's also an investment into you. Those minerals get into their bodies, and as you are and your family are eating these chickens, you're going to get that as well. But the brewer's yeast, riboflavin that's in there, that's probably the cheapest way, I'm thinking, depending on your sources. But there again, there's a lot of different things that you can use, and there's a lot of variables depending on your feed mix, what you're giving them forage-wise, and several different things. But these birds are not like other birds, and these other supplements can be really helpful to your layers as well and really help performance. The next video, we're going to be addressing one other thing in nutrition that really isn't so much of a supplement as it is a necessity, but that's often overlooked. But raising broilers doesn't have to be hard. You don't have to have these heart attacks, your birds collapsing on themselves because they have leg issues. You don't have to be having respiratory issues that usually lead to heart attacks and stuff as well. These birds can be very healthy, and I feel like it is our responsibility and duty to take care of what we have and give it the best life possible while they are on this earth, and do it as humanely as possible. So thanks for watching our videos. If you have any comments on anything that I said in here, talking about tweaking your feed rations or anything about these birds, watering systems, where we got them from, just ask the questions below. Thanks for watching this video, and if you liked it, let somebody know about it and subscribe.